Hi everybody, Wildside here. Tonight I just want to quickly address hobbing bolts. Do's and don'ts, I guess. I recently saw a post on one of the Google Plus circles, and there was a complaint about the hobbing not working very well. Now, what I saw in the picture that the user posted was that he had a really deep groove. I'd say it was probably like 1.5 millimeters into the bolt, and just really good notches in there. But in my opinion, that's actually contrary to what you want. You actually want very little in the way of hobbing into the bolt itself. You want to preserve this diameter that you have on the bolt. My experience has been that when you hob deeper into the bolt, you tend to get more grinding of the filament if there's any back pressure to trying to push the filament. And although you would think that that actually gives you a little bit more torque because the diameter is narrower, it actually ends up not really buying you a whole lot, since you spend most of your time trying to clean out ground up filament and broken filament and that kind of thing. So let me just dive right into it. As you can see, let me see if I can focus a little bit better. Focus. Alright, so as you can see right there, my bolt is pretty much flat across the hobbing there. I use an M3 or an M4 tap. I believe I've got an M4 on here tonight. The tool that I use is one that I found on Bought Thingiverse, and modified just ever so slightly to use the bearings that I had available. And I think I might have changed the spacing of stuff a little bit, but anyway, these kind of tools are out there. You can search for Wildside and on Thingiverse or Imagine or Shapedo, preferably on one of the latter two. But anyway, so the idea behind this is that it lets you place your bolt into the jig here exactly as if it were going into an extruder, so the spacing is preserved and you get your hob in the correct place. Now, just a little bit on the extruder design that I'm using here. This is UniX, or Unix, I don't know how it's pronounced, but basically it's one of the Wade's variants. I really like this particular design. It doesn't have the problem that Greg's has printing down at the bottom, where it sort of tends to get warped because of that weird angle that he has on the edges. And it has an insert. Now, everything that I'm showing you here is not original to UniX. Some things like this are things that I added, and they're available on my accounts. But there's an insert that drops down in there for different variations of the J-head. Anyway, what's particularly pertinent about this extruder design for this video is the guidler element, the little guides that keep the filament centered. Because in lieu of having a deep ridge in your hob bolt, that's what's going to keep your filament centered. Although it does very little, in my opinion. I think the filament gets guided more by the filament hole than anything else. But anyway, so at this point, all I can do right now is just show you how I hob a bolt. Now, in a couple of additions that I added to the UniX design are these little spacers. The reason for them is so that you know, if you were to use a washer to space your large gear, chances are the washer is going to be rubbing a little bit against the parts of the bearing that are not spinning, rather than the shaft in the middle, which does spin. So this addresses that by reducing the surface contact. It can take the place of a washer, and then it fits right against the spinning surface and doesn't touch the flat part of the washer that doesn't spin with the center shaft. So when I'm hobbing a bolt, I have to include those in the stack of pieces that go in there. I hope I can remove this. I'm going to pause the video for a second. I think I'm going to have to strain a bit. Okay, so that was incredibly difficult, but I did get it all apart. So I have my 2 shims here, and I have my fresh bolt that I'll be hobbing. So I have to push this guy in. Hope I don't have to pause the video again, but if I do, you will never know it. So as I was saying, when you're going to hob the bolt, you need to have it put together exactly the same way as it will be on your extruder, especially if you're using one of these hobbing jigs, since it'll preserve the spacing and there won't be any guesswork. So what I'm doing right now is just assembling the bolt onto the large gear, and then I'm putting one of my spacers that will of course be a part of the stack in the actual extruder. And there in the background you can see my drill already fitted with the M4 tap. Get on there, come on. Alright, there we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap the threads from one side, then I'm going to flip it over and tap it from the other side. So I don't know how clearly you can see that here, but there are going to be 2 runs on this, and they end up creating a patch of hobbing that's about 5 millimeters across. Okay, so at this point I'm just gonna slip on the other shim again, because it helps with not causing the bearing to bind against any kind of a washer you might put on there, or binding against the nut directly. You want this to spin fairly freely. It's alright if it's even a little tiny bit loose. It just makes it a little more efficient, and the bolt won't have that tendency of just getting stuck and then grinding out a chunk of it. Alright, so I've got it mounted on here. This is essentially what it would look like if it were mounted in the extruder. And I'm going to slip the... Damn, I got big thumbs. I'm going to slip the the threading bit through here and just run it for a bit. Let's do that now. Alright, so that was 2 revolutions, and I think it looks okay. So with that, I'm going to flip it over to the other side and repeat it again, like another couple of revolutions, just to keep it consistent. I'd probably do another couple more, but for the sake of brevity, I'll just keep it to 2 here. I think you guys get the idea by now. And I should say that you know, I've been building my extruders this way for, I don't know, a couple of years now, ever since I found that UniX design, basically. And this is how I've been doing it the whole time. I build a few printers here and there for other folks, and I don't get any complaints about the extruders, so I can attest to that. And yes, there's lots of fancy schmancy ideas out there about how these things should be done, and I don't necessarily disagree with them. It's just, you know, with the hobby of 3D printing, you sort of can only follow one person's advice, because even though everyone's advice may be correct, there's sometimes contradictions that simply can't be resolved because of the differences in philosophy. So just bear that in mind when you're trying my ideas or those of anybody else. Your mileage may vary depending on how compatible your own philosophy is. Okay, so here we go on the other side, and like I said, we're going to do a couple of turns. Ready, set, go. That's 1 turn. That's 2 turns. Alright, so I guess because I'm filming the video and trying to keep everything in the field of view there, I left a little bit of a ring down the middle that didn't get hobbed. That is not what you want to happen. So I'm going to concentrate a little bit more on it this time, and basically I just need to keep the bit straight while I'm hobbing, so that doesn't happen. Alright, and there you have it. Let me take the bolt out, and we can see that it is in fact still flat. And you have my personal guarantee, which isn't even worth a cup of coffee, that this will indeed work for you for a very, very long time. And while I'm at it, recommending this type of an approach to hobbing the bolt, I also highly recommend that you have a look at the uniX-Wade extruder. Like I said, I'll be posting the link on the video. Here's the hobbing. Wow, that's really nice. Can you see it? How well centered it is. Looks really good. And I have all the confidence in the world that this thing is definitely going to perform well. So if you have any questions, just I guess post them in the comments, or find me on one of the part sites, preferably not Thingiverse. Yes, yes, a necessary evil. Anyway, talk more about that some other time. Alright, well, thanks for watching. I hope the video's been helpful to someone out there. Again, I'll post links to all the parts and things that I've shown you in this video, and maybe a few others. Ask those questions. Thanks a lot, guys.